Hey everybody, it's me, your favorite trash boy. Sly 3 is the final game in the Sly Cooper franchise on the PS2. And it's also the last game that Sucker Punch actually made involving Sly Cooper at all. It's been viewed by many as the best of the three original PS2 games and as a proper way to end a beloved platforming icon. Much like how I took a look at the other games in the Sly Cooper franchise, I want to take a good look at Sly 3 and see if it's still good today. And more importantly, does it hold up against other games in its series and other games like it? Is it still worthwhile to play to this day? So, if you want to come with me, get a drink, and let's get comfortable, because we're going to dive right into Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves. Sly 3 drops us right into the action of a huge heist. Sly is trying to open the Cooper family vault, a giant sealed chamber that holds the wealth of every ancestor in Sly's family bloodline. During this opening segment, we get to hear Sly and Bentley and 5 other people who we don't know. As we move around, we're reacquainted with how to control him. Sly has the exact same control scheme as Sly 2, Band of Thieves. X jumps, you can run with the R1 button, use a circle button to use your Master Thief move, square attacks, same basic stuff. Once we get to the top of the mountain fortress though, we encounter Dr. M, a baboon who has purchased the deed to this island and has been trying to crack open the Cooper Vault for years. When he meets up with Sly, he immediately starts shooting at him, and this prompts Sly to regroup with Bentley as they run from Dr. M. Eventually though, Dr. M catches Sly and, with the help of a giant monster, begins to crush him in his own hands. As the monster crushes Sly, we are treated to a flashback of how he got here. This leads to a cutscene that tells us Sly's past, as well as the events leading to this very moment. That's right. This whole game takes place in the past. Sly 3 takes a lot of aspects from Sly 2. First and foremost, the game has the exact same structure, an action-adventure platformer broken down into separate different episodes. Sly 3 still includes the same health bar and ability bar from Sly 2 as well, and gadgets are still purchased from the ThiefNet. However, this time around, gadgets have been reworked. They don't use nearly as much of the meter as they did before, and they've been tweaked a bit to make them more satisfying to use. On top of that, many of the gadgets have returned from Sly 2, albeit some have been moved away from Sly and Murray's toolbox and been placed into Bentley's toolbox, or have just been renamed. I really like how they updated the gadgets in the game this time around. In Sly 2, I felt pressure to not use some of the lesser gadgets and always save up for the big ones I may need later. And Sly 3 changed that. Now I found myself using a lot more of the gadgets way more often. Yes, they're a little bit more expensive than the second game, but they're more valuable. And on top of that, they're more useful because you can use them more often. They feel less like a precious resource and more like a actual item and mechanic you're intended to use. Like Sly 2, Sly 3 lets you jump between different members of the Cooper gang at will. Sly's still the smooth acrobatic thief, Bentley's got his sleep darts and explosives, and Murray continues to smash everything in sight. But the big twist this time is the addition of new playable characters. Each episode introduces someone fresh with a unique mechanic or mission style, and they actually stick around in the story. It adds variety and keeps the gameplay from going stale. But there is a downside. You don't get to freely switch to them. You can only use them in specific missions, which kind of kills the excitement of having a bigger crew. As I mentioned, you're going to be getting new characters in every episode, because turns out, instead of having some overarching villain or having some overarching devices to collect, the big goal in Sly 3 is cracking open the Cooper Vault. But to pull that off, you're going to need your new crew and their new skills. Each episode revolves around recruiting a specialist. Bentley identifies a problem the gang might face during the big heist, and then that episode becomes about recruiting that specialist. It's a solid setup. However, compared to Sly 2, it lacks a bit of tension. Sly 2 had the constant looming threat between episodes. Clockwork's return was baked into everything you did. Sly 3, meanwhile, feels more like a series of standalone adventures. They're fun, well-paced, and full of character, but the overarching story doesn't feel as urgent or tightly connected. It's good, just not quite as gripping. Sly 3 also adds a couple of extras outside of the main story: multiplayer and challenge missions. The multiplayer is just a few modes like hacking, aerial dogfights, a game of cop and robbers. It's fun for a quick laugh with a friend, but honestly, it didn't hold my attention long. The challenge missions, though, are the more interesting parts. They remix existing missions with unique conditions. They're more of a side dish than a full meal, but they are fun to try at. But here is the real letdown, the thing that I think Sly 3 really messes up on. They completely have removed the clue bottles. Sly 1 and Sly 2 had these hidden items called clue bottles that if you collected them all would reward you with a powerful upgrade or gadget if you found them all. It gave you a reason to explore every inch and every nook and cranny of the location. However, without them, the world of Sly 3 feel a lot less rewarding to poke around in. It's kind of a baffling omission in my opinion, and it's one that hurts the game's sense of discovery. As now, when you go inside of a mission or an episode, there's not much to do but the main story. It makes free roaming these locations feel a little less fun and interactive, and more just like a giant set piece. However, this leads us into the meat and potatoes of Sly 3. It's 6 episodes. Episode 1 kicks off everything in Venice. Here, we're trying to get Murray to rejoin the Cooper gang after the events of Sly 2. Back in Sly 2, if you don't remember, Murray wasn't able to save Bentley from the jaws of Clock Law, and as a result, Bentley became paralyzed forever. And Murray has blamed himself ever since. As a result, he went on a giant spirit journey, and the final test from his guru is to purify the tar-filled canals in Venice. This was all a result of the mafia boss and former opera singer Octavio. And Sly and Bentley realize if they want Murray back, they're gonna have to stop Octavio. Venice looks stunning, especially for a PS2 game. The sunset palette and all the warm oranges and cool blues, they really make the city pop. And mechanically, this episode is packed with all sorts of good stuff. You'll be doing lockpicking, code hunting in old paintings, and even disguising yourself to trick guards. It nails the heist movie vibe perfectly. And a fun fact, those paintings you'll be looking in at, they're actually pulled straight from Sly 1 and Sly 2's comic book style cutscenes. It's a really cool attention to detail. We also get the first of many Carmelita segments in this game, and they start right at the Venice location. Each one is an absolute blast. She's armed with a shock pistol and she can mega drop across rooftops, and she's super powerful. Carmelita herself is a much larger part of the gameplay in Sly 3. Instead of just being an antagonist who helps the gang out and has some good story beats, she has several moments where she's a playable character, and we get further insights into how she thinks and acts. Also, I want to point out the animation of her charging her mega jump makes her look like she's taking a big poop. The heist has a square off with Octavio. There's an opera singer with Octavio, a high-speed boat chase, and a boss fight where Murray reclaims his strength. And he physically beats the tar out of Octavio. Pun intended. It's a solid start to the game, and it flows directly into episode 2 of the Australian Outback. I think episode 1 is more of a good catch-up for people who have been playing Sly 2 and want to immediately hop into Sly 3. It's not too much different than the first two games, and has just enough new stuff to keep you interested. And I really like the fact they address the big things in Sly 2, where Murray ended up feeling weak because of what happened to Bentley. It's a nice addition, and it really makes episode 1 feel like a good start. Episode 2 is home of the Guru, a koala with the unnatural ability to shapeshift and be able to take over the minds of the weak-willed. The Guru has been captured by miners looking for opals. They've been mining with little care for the environment and have unearthed the Mask of Dark Earth. The Guru will only excuse Murray of his duties and help the gang out if they can destroy the miners and put an end to the Mask of Dark Earth. The Outback here is home to all sorts of vehicle missions, platforming, and some claw machine levels. Since this is a mining operation, we get to drive this giant truck squashing bugs, take out miners in caves, and even use the mining cranes like claw machines. And I gotta say, they did a great job theming this whole episode. Every level is related to mining, and it keeps that mining theme, and it's really fun. And unlike the vehicle missions in Sly 2, Sly 3's missions are far easier to control. I had far more fun playing the giant truck due to how easy it was to move around and didn't fight me every time. Episode 2 also has us play as a Guru. In fact, Episode 2 is the first time we play as somebody other than the main gang, or Carmelita. He can disguise himself as an object to hide from guards, then jump on their backs to control them. It's fun to ram guards into things, but unfortunately, that seems to be the most of what he does. The Guru isn't the most in-depth character, and it's a shame because he could have been used for some great stealth segments, especially when you consider he can only shapeshift and doesn't have the ability to track at all. Episode 2 does have a rather weird heist, if you could call it that. The gang need to destroy the Mask of Dark Earth, and in order to do that, have set up an elaborate trap for it. However, just before they get the chance to do so, Carmelita shows up, and the mask immediately latches onto her. This causes her to grow in size and start chasing Sly around, which prompts us to play as Bentley and snipe her a few times with sleep darts. This actually ends up failing, and then Carmelita grows even more, which causes us to run away in a truck and throw barrels of TNT at her. And then lastly, there is a scene where Carmelita grows to the size of a skyscraper, and we play a Sly climbing up her bootlaces to take off the mask. Who did this? Who put this fetish fuel in my game? I demand answers! One of the more challenging and creative episodes has to be episode 3. It takes place in Holland, and Bentley has done all the work tracking down an expert RC specialist, her name being Penelope. She's agreed to assist us in the vault heist under one condition: that we can beat her boss, the Black Baron. The Black Baron holds a yearly aerial dogfight competition inviting the best of the best. When we arrive at the competition under disguise as a team, we actually run into Dimitri again. Turns out he's actually one of the speakers in the competition, and in exchange for some valuable information about the other competitors, he tells us we owe him a big favor. Keep that in mind for later. What makes this episode so fun is the unique mission variety. This episode brings back hacking missions from Sly 2. They expanded on them by creating new obstacles and enemy types. This makes them require far more thought than before. And while they still maintain the same simple mechanics, they are more challenging this time and still just as fun as before. You'll also have to defend the hangar from a familiar face. Returning from Sly 1 is the villain Mugshot. He wants revenge on the Cooper gang for ruining his Mesa City crime syndicate. He's too tough to beat physically, so instead you have to ram shop equipment into him. It's a challenging mission because after getting him to leave, you have to defend the sewers from more of his goons. It's super intense as you have to flip-flop between two screens and you don't have many room for errors. Penelope is the new playable character for this area, and she has two unique mission styles: RC copters and an RC car. The copter has the ability to grapple enemies and launch them away, and while the car has a turret on it, the RC copter is far more enjoyable to play thanks to its maneuverability, whereas the RC car is kind of rough to play around with. You'll be bumping into things and it resets a few too many times, as I feel that sometimes has too much turning radius and sometimes too little. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is something to pay attention to. We also actually get to play as Guru as well here. We take over the mind of a wild wolf and go absolute crazy on the town, going on a rampage, eating all kinds of people. We're here trying to whittle down our competition without them actually knowing it's us and thinking it's just a wild wolf. Also, I want to point out how this wolf is treated like an animal, despite everybody else also being an anthropomorphic animal. And that's racism. Not to mention, this is the episode where you get to pilot a biplane and shoot down rivals in aerial dogfights. The plane itself is a little slower than what I would like, and there's no aiming reticle, so it can be hard to lead your shots, but I did find myself enjoying this far more than I thought. Episode 3 is such a great episode because of the variety that it has. It's easy to replay this episode because you don't get fatigued with the same mission types over and over again. Episode 3's heist is interesting narratively, but not so much gameplay wise. After sabotaging the rivals, you take on the Black Baron directly. There's a fun dogfight here, but after that, there's just a battle hand to hand with the Black Baron, and he's not much of a challenge. His attacks are obvious, slow, and they don't have much variation. Once we beat him though, we learn that the Black Baron is actually Penelope in disguise. She hid her real identity because the competition doesn't allow women to compete, and the Black Baron was just a way to get her to take part in the competition. However, true to her words, she joins the gang on their heist. Albeit she does tend to favor Sly over everybody else, being attracted to his natural athleticism. Episode 4. This time we're off to China. Bentley is still cooking up the perfect plan to crack the Cooper Vault, and decides they need an expert demolitionist. And his pick is none other than the Panda King, one of Sly's old enemies from Sly 1. Now you'd expect the usual redemption arc. Villain turns good, he helps the heroes, they get along, high fives all around. But Sly 3 doesn't take that narrative shortcut. When we interact with the Panda King, he is still very much bitter and hateful and angry at Sly and at himself. He's still bitter about the defeat he had way back in Sly 1, and he still thinks about it constantly. We actually have to use the Guru's powers to help get the Panda King through it by fighting him in a recreation of the Sly 1 boss battle he had. Even after snapping out of his meditation, the Panda King isn't in on the heist. His daughter Jing King has been kidnapped by a power-hungry warlord, General Tsao, looking to force her into a marriage, and the Panda King is more worried about that than anything else. Sly and Bentley offer a deal though. Help us with a vault job, and we'll help you rescue her. Reluctantly, the Panda King agrees. What makes this episode stand out is how seriously it takes this tension. The Panda King doesn't mesh with the team. He's distant, gruff, and clearly still carrying baggage. It's only after a dialogue between his reflection, where he reflects on the past and he confronts his regrets, that he starts to consider working with the team. Watching him grow, especially after he's inspired by Murray's goofy but genuine love for the band and the gang.
I will not! I will never leave her behind again!
Words do tear at a father's heart. Would that I had such passion when they came from my little Jing King.
Is actually really touching. The game doesn't just tell you he's changed, it makes you feel it.
Through cooperation, will we become the father Jing King needs.
And what makes episode 4 even stronger is the contrast between the modern Panda King and the chapter's main villain, General Tsao. Tsao is everything the Panda King used to be. He's egotistical, power-hungry, obsessed with his own greatness, and has the ability to use black magic passed down by his family. He struts around claiming he's unbeatable, that his enemies are beneath him, and that his divine rights justify everything he does. Basically, he's what the Panda King was. It's a clever narrative mirror. Tsao is the past version of the Panda King he's desperately trying to move on from. And if that's not enough to make you hate him, he's also a full-on misogynist, treating Jing King like property and justifying it with his family's sacred bloodline.
She's a woman. She doesn't know up from down.
The heist is where we get to free Jing King by making an underground tunnel, steal some gold with Penelope's RC car, and ride fireworks to slay a dragon. Episode 4 is a turning point, though, in the game, where it's the moment Sly 3 goes from just being a heist caper with a fantasy element to something a little deeper. It's a story about redemption, teamwork, and yes, blowing stuff up with fireworks. Episode 5 drops us right into Bloodbath Bay. This is where Sly finally repays the favor to Dimitri that we agreed to back in episode 3. Turns out Dimitri's grandfather was a legendary diver until a pirate stole his gear and then eventually tanked his career. Now, Dimitri wants that legacy back, and Bentley sees an opportunity to use his skills for the heist, so they decide to help him out if he'll help out the crew. This whole episode leans hard into a pirate aesthetic, and it works. The setting looks like it came right out of the Pirates of the Caribbean. The entire town is trapped in the 1600s, and they're loving it. It's a great visual shift that keeps the game feeling fresh. But the real show stealer in this entire episode is naval combat. You actually get to captain a pirate ship, steering, firing cannons, and looting rival ships. It's surprisingly deep and satisfying. The ship controls are smooth, and the cannonballs have an auto track that's just good enough to feel powerful without being brainless. And the gold you earn in this episode is far more than enough to purchase everything from ThiefNet. Honestly, it feels like a prototype to Assassin's Creed's Black Flag, and I mean that as a compliment. After getting Dimitri's gear though, there's a big narrative shift where Lafree, a local pirate lord, captures Penelope. The only way to free her is to out-pirate the pirates. Bentley takes full charge, planning a way to improve the cannons, take on the other pirates, and he even finds a way to beat a local sea monster and use it later on in the heist. During the heist, it's Bentley who frees Penelope from the pirate ship. This gesture makes Penelope realize that she'd be much happier with Bentley in her life. And when Lafree shows up, Penelope is the one to take him on. Penelope and Bentley are a pretty cute couple, and it's nice to see Bentley find someone who respects and likes him. It's worth acknowledging Sly 3's biggest theme: legacy. Every character, hero or villain, is haunted by it, chasing it, or trying not to be defined by it. For example, in episode 1, Octavio was an opera singer who was a legend. People loved him. But the world moved on. He held on to his legacy of being a great opera singer and wanting to reclaim it. So much so that he became violent, and he ended up hurting a lot of people. A lot of innocent people. Episode 2 had miners who were so haunted by the legacy of gold and riches. They destroyed precious artifacts and hurt a lot of native species. Episode 3 had Penelope, who didn't just make the Black Baron, she created a legacy. The legacy of the Black Baron prevented her from removing the mask and being who she truly was. Episode 4 had two different takes on legacy. General Tsao was so goddamn annoying. But he was annoying and cruel because of the legacy of his bloodline. He used it to justify all kinds of heinous acts and used it to control other people. The Panda King also had legacy. Bad legacy. He was known as a guy who lost to the Cooper clan. He lost everything. His legacy in shambles. And he didn't know whether to bury it for the longest time or try to redeem it. And episode 5 has Dimitri, somebody who has a legacy of his grandfather. Somebody who wants to reclaim that diving legacy and redefine it into something new. Legacy in Sly 3 isn't just someone's backstory. It's baggage. And the final episode of Sly 3 can show us how someone else's legacy can be twisted in the minds of others, so much so that it brews the worst kind of hatred. Episode 6, Honor Among Thieves, isn't your typical Sly 3 episode. It's less of a new location and more of a series of high-stakes missions that tie the whole game together. It picks up right where the prologue left off, Sly in the grip of Dr. M's giant science experiment. and this starts us off with Carmelita and Interpol crashing the party. Right out the gate, you get to play as Carmelita blasting down the monster. What follows is a rapid series of missions, Dimitri diving to recover Sly's cane, Penelope remote controlling an RC car to knock out radio towers, and another aerial dogfight that pushes your reflexes one last time. The real centerpiece is the vault itself. We finally get to see the Cooper legacy in full. Massive gold rooms, intricate platforming sections, and portraits of Sly's ancestors, and some dialogue hinting at their skills and stories. It's not just a level, it's a payoff. It's a celebration of the series' history and everything Sly's family has built up over the generations. But this finale doesn't just throw loot and lore at you, it gets personal. As Sly explores, Bentley starts to spiral. He questions whether or not Sly truly respects him, or if he's just another overlooked sidekick, much like how Dr. M was to Sly's father. And that's the kicker. Dr. M isn't just a normal villain. He's a dark reflection of Bentley. Same brains, same loyalty, but abandoned by a Cooper and filled with resentment. What saved Bentley isn't logic, but Murray. Murray reminds him that their friendship isn't one-sided. Sly's not his father, and they're not just tools in someone else's legacy.
Stop these thugs and protect his friend.
Dr. M is completely consumed with the Cooper gang, and more importantly, Sly's father. He is consumed with the idea of what they have, their legacy. Not as an obsession, but rather an infestation. Dr. M is truly infested with the idea of what they have. And here's the sad thing. If Dr. M wanted to, after the split up with Sly's father, he could have achieved greatness and a legacy of his own. He's clearly smart, he's brilliant, has a mass understanding of biology and other things in the world, and he's very much capable. But the mere idea that the Coopers have something that he doesn't angers him. He's obsessed and infested with the idea of the past, and more importantly, with what he thinks should be his. And if you really take a look at it, Dr. M is very close to another big villain in the Sly Cooper franchise, that being Clockwork. I don't know if this was intentional on the writer's part, but every major villain in Sly Cooper, whether it's from Sly 1 all the way up to the future games, they all have the same core theme. They're obsessed with what other people have, whether it be their achievements, their abilities, their wealth. They're defined on acquiring power, not for the sake of power or building themselves up, but for tearing down what other people have. That's what makes these characters and these villains so dangerous and so truly sad. They could have done their own thing and had their own legacy, but instead they chose to obsess over other people. Then comes the final boss fight, Dr. M. He's a tough fight, dodging lasers, using giant machines to hide from that giant laser, and scrambling around for cover while also trying to get your own hits in. He's the hardest boss in the game, and it took me many tries to beat him. Once you get him low enough though, Carmelita does show up, and Dr. M decides that he wants to remove her and finish off Sly. However, just before he can hit Carmelita, Sly dives in and takes the hit. And after Carmelita checks up on him, she realizes Sly has no memory of what's going on. Sly has a amnesia, if you will, and doesn't understand what's going on, and just knows that this place is coming down. The island starts a self-destruct sequence because the inner sanctum's been defiled by a non-Cooper. Carmelita decides to escape with an injured Sly. However, as the final cutscene plays out, Bentley recounts how Dr. M refused to leave. He wanted so badly to enter the vault, and despite everything crashing down, he refuses to let go of the legacy he never got to experience. The rest of this cutscene is dedicated to getting all the gang members back up as they search the ruins to try and find Sly. But when they do eventually find something, it's just his gear and a Cooper calling card. But more importantly, what's behind that is a hoard of gold treasure. No body, just a mystery of what happened. The final cutscene, of course, gives us an epilogue for each crew member. Murray and the Guru go back to Australia to finish up his training. Penelope and Bentley fall head over heels into their love and decide to stay with each other. And the Panda King retreats to the mountains to prepare for his daughter's future and scout out any potential suitor who might be coming there. And lastly, Dimitri decides to become a cruise ship diver / ladies man. It's lighthearted and full of closure, and I like how they gave everybody a simple end to their story. And then, one last twist. Bentley tracks down Sly, and turns out he's living a quiet life with Carmelita. Turns out maybe that amnesia wasn't too real after all. And Sly finally found something worth retiring for. And with that, Sly 3 ends. Not with a bang,
Sneaky devil.
but a smile. What a ride. So what do I think about it? Well, let's start off with the positives. First and foremost, Sly 3 is a continuation from Sly 2 and an expansion upon what Sly 2 had. You still have reoccurring pickpocketing, looting guards, and bugging offices, but now it feels a little bit more refined, and there's a ton of new mission variety. They added so much in without feeling too unlike a Sly Cooper game. They really did do a whole lot with the game design this time around, and I like that. I also really like the idea of getting new members. Each one brings a good story beat, new mechanics, and new gameplay, and they're really well fleshed out, and I do like them all. And on top of that, the narrative is also really good. You have story beats that deal with self-worth and legacy and what it means to be a person. It's really good, and I like the idea that they expanded upon what the characters think about. There's a lot more in-depth characterization, and as a result, we get a lot more in-depth on what the people think about. But it isn't perfect, and it's got a lot more problems than Sly 2 or Sly 1. First off, the absence of clue bottles really does hamper the discovering and feeling of it being in the world. It's really hard to get invested in a world if there's nothing to chase for it other than missions. It makes revisiting old locations feel kind of dull and boring. And on top of that, the villains aren't the best. Outside of Dr. M, a lot of the villains don't get enough story depth for you to really hate them and want to take them down. They're not that intimidating. And while they have some good funny moments, not all of them feel like a true threat. I still love the game, I really do. But if I had to choose between replaying either the first two games or Sly 3, I'm picking the first two games, as those ones are a lot more fun to play through. But by no means do I think Sly 3 is a bad game. It's really good. And on top of that, Sly 3 wasn't trying to top Sly 1 and Sly 2. It was trying to end something. Sucker Punch wanted to give Sly Cooper a fitting finale. One where he could ride off into the sunset and be happy. And I totally think they did that. I think the game is great and it's absolutely worth your time. And they never made another one. Not at all. Wait. There is another one, isn't there? There is. One that came out years later. By a completely different development team.